Story 1, She Stole My Heart and My Kidneys. The snow fell silently over York, a soft white blanket that made the streets of the old town seem both beautiful and desolate. Liam Harrington, 30, single, and completely unsuspecting, had spent the evening putting up a modest Christmas tree in his townhouse. Outside, the wind whispered along the cobblestone lanes, rattling the shutters. Inside, the faint glow of fairy lights reflected on the polished wooden floors. He had met Rachel on Tinder 3 weeks earlier. She was tall, exceptionally so, and her photos had barely done justice to her 1.93-meter frame. She had a smile that seemed impossibly perfect, and an allure that made him overlook the subtle oddities in her conversation. Tonight, she had invited him to share a drink, to help him feel less lonely during the holidays. As Liam climbed the narrow staircase to hang a few ornaments near the top of the tree, Rachel appeared behind him, carrying a glass of red wine. "To us," she said, her voice low, intoxicating. He barely noticed the odd chemical scent in the wine, a cheap perfume that clung heavily, masking something far fouler. He sipped, the warmth spreading lazily through his chest. His eyes began to droop. Minutes passed like hours. By the time he realized his limbs were heavy, Rachel was already hovering over him. Darkness swallowed him before he could react. He awoke with a metallic tang in his mouth. Pain lanced through his side as he tried to move, only to realize his arms were bound to the kitchen chair. The room spun, his eyes landed on a stainless steel tray beside him, and his stomach sank. A human kidney, still warm, lay neatly on it. Rachel stood in the corner, her red dress stark against the dim light, a cigarette smoldering between her fingers. "Merry Christmas," she whispered, exhaling smoke. "The other kidney will be ready in an hour." Panic surged through him, pure and unfiltered. He twisted against the ropes, trying to scream, but his throat felt constricted. His mind raced, escape was impossible. Yet then, faintly, from the townhouse next door, came the sound of a door slamming and urgent voices. Rachel's head snapped toward the sound, a flicker of irritation passing over her otherwise composed face. Before Liam could comprehend, the door to his kitchen burst open. A neighbor had heard his muffled cries and had called for help. Rachel swore under her breath and bolted toward the front door, a second stainless tray clutched to her chest. In her car, the trunk revealed a horrifying secret: 14 refrigerated boxes, each labeled meticulously, each containing a human organ. Past Christmases, past victims. The meticulous planning and cold calculation chilled Liam more than the knife ever could. Paramedics arrived, working quickly to stabilize him. The wound was deep, 20 centimeters across his abdomen, the remaining kidney untouched but vulnerable. The room smelled of antiseptic and terror. Every glance at the Christmas tree made him heave. Every twinkle of its lights reminded him of the knife, the tray, the woman who smiled as if nothing had happened. Police later discovered Rachel's escape route. Surveillance footage showed her moving like a phantom through the snowy streets, her car disappearing into the night. In her trunk, alongside the stolen kidney, were 6 bottles of morphine and the chilling boxes. The investigation confirmed her as a serial organ trafficker, targeting men via dating apps. 3 years, 14 victims, all around the holidays. Liam had survived, but only just, and at a cost he could never undo. Life after that Christmas was irrevocably altered. The very idea of wine made him gag. The sight of a red dress filled him with unease. And the Christmas tree, once a symbol of warmth and joy, became a trigger for nausea and fear. He underwent months of therapy, surgeries, and dialysis treatments, forever reminded of how fragile human life could be in the hands of someone utterly devoid of conscience. And every December, when the snow returned to York, Liam felt the old panic rise in his chest. The wind seemed sharper, the streets emptier, and the memory of Rachel's calm, towering presence haunted every shadowed corner of his townhouse. She was gone, but her legacy remained, a man forever scarred, a holiday forever tainted, and a chilling reminder that sometimes the people we trust most can be the ones to take from us not just our hearts, but our very life. Story 2, Santa Wanted More Than Milk and Cookies. Salford, Greater Manchester, was quieter than usual that Christmas Eve of 1997. The usual festive lights flickered against the fog, casting pale halos over the snow-dusted streets. 7-year-old Jacob Jake Goldstein and his 4-year-old sister Sophie were huddled inside their small home, the aroma of lax and freshly baked bread filling the kitchen. Their parents had stepped out for a quick errand, leading the children to marvel at the menorah, its 8 flames dancing and reflecting against the polished wooden table. That night, Jake had insisted on staying up a little longer to make sure Santa found the house. Sophie, half asleep, was curled in the corner, clutching a worn teddy. They didn't know that the Santa coming tonight was far from the jolly figure they imagined. A shadowy figure had been stalking the neighborhood for weeks, disguised in red and white. Reports of child-targeted attacks and break-ins were circulating among the local police and families, but nothing concrete had emerged. And yet, tonight, that figure approached the Goldstein home, his boots crunching softly over the snow, the fog curling around him like a shroud. Jake first noticed the movement through the frosted window. A tall man in a Santa suit, face obscured by shadow, was lingering by the front door. His hands twitched as though itching to grab, to strike. Jake felt a shiver run down his spine. He remembered the stories his parents had whispered, strangers pretending to be Santa. But he also remembered the tales of courage and wit. Tonight, he decided, he would be ready. The man pounded the door, but Jake was ready. He had noticed that the lock was slightly misaligned, the glass cracked from a previous storm. As the Santa lifted a hammer to smash it further, Jake acted. He had been told the importance of the menorah lights. 8 flames, 8 sources of protection, and tonight, they would save his life. With trembling hands, Jake grabbed matches and lit each candle, arranging them strategically along the doorway and near the window. The flames flickered as if responding to his fear. The intruder hesitated, his shadow wavering in the glow. Every inch he advanced, Jake whispered protective prayers under his breath, his eyes fixed on the figure's movements. When the first crack of glass came, Jake was ready. He had doused the flames in oil from a hidden container, creating a sudden flare that startled the intruder. Smoke filled the air, acrid and choking, but it bought time. Jake grabbed Sophie and backed into a corner, covering her small body with his own. The man, frustrated, reached through the broken glass, trying to undo the lock, but the flames prevented him from entering fully. By the time the local fire brigade arrived, called by neighbors who had heard the commotion, the intruder was already desperate. He attempted to flee but was intercepted by the firefighters, who restrained him just as the flames dimmed. Only later did the police uncover the horror hidden in his bag, a blood-stained folding knife and 5 baby teeth, trophies of previous victims. The depth of his depravity was unimaginable. The Goldstein children had survived by mere minutes. After the chaos subsided, Jake and Sophie were examined for trauma, but physically, they were unharmed. Emotionally, however, the night had carved deep grooves in their young minds. The menorah, once a symbol of celebration and divine protection, was forever associated with terror and near death. The police investigation revealed that the man had been a fugitive, wanted in both England and Ireland for crimes against children, a predator who had adapted the guise of Santa to hunt during the holidays. Years later, Jake would still recall the taste of smoke and the heat of the flames, the soft sound of Sophie's breathing, and the stark realization of mortality at such a tender age. He carried the memory like a scar, and every December, when the nights grew long and the fog thickened over Manchester, the anxiety returned in waves. He would check locks multiple times, avoid letting his children near open windows or doors, and keep the menorah high, almost ritualistically, to ward off fears that were both irrational and terrifyingly real. That Christmas, a lesson etched itself into Jake's psyche, that even the familiar could be deadly, that threats could wear the most comforting disguise, and that survival sometimes hinged on courage, wit, and the ability to act decisively under unimaginable pressure. His childhood had ended abruptly that night, replaced with vigilance and an enduring wariness of strangers in red suits. For Sophie, the memory was less articulated but equally potent. She would flinch at the sound of boots and snow, hesitate when seeing a red coat, and cling to Jake whenever they visited festive displays. The trauma was invisible yet persistent, a shadow that followed them for decades. The Goldstein house, now quiet and empty, still bore faint traces of the night, scorch marks on the floor from the hastily lit menorah, faint scratches on the door from the intruder's attempts, and the lingering scent of smoke that refused to leave completely. It was a stark reminder that the most joyous times could harbor unimaginable danger, and that the spirit of vigilance was perhaps the truest gift they had received that Christmas. Jake would grow up, marry, and have children of his own, but every December he would make sure all locks were secure, every window tightly shut, and every child in his care aware of the potential dangers lurking behind seemingly benign facades. The man in the Santa suit might have been gone, but the lessons remained: vigilance, courage, and the indelible understanding that darkness can hide behind the brightest lights. Story 3: The Airbnb that already had a tenant. The blizzard hit the Adirondack Mountains like a living thing, hurling snow and wind against the tiny cabin that Ryan and Olivia Caldwell had booked for their Christmas getaway. The roads were empty, the forest around them silent but for the eerie whistle of the storm. The isolation had been part of the appeal, a place to escape from the city, from the relentless noise of life, and to simply be together for the holidays. The first night, everything seemed normal. The cabin was rustic but charming: wooden beams, a stone fireplace, and the faint scent of pine from the surrounding forest. The couple unpacked their bags and lit a small fire, imagining a cozy Christmas morning. Yet, small inconsistencies began to appear: cold water that never got warm, power that flickered and died, and a faint, almost imperceptible odor in the corner of the living room. Olivia had shrugged off the smell as mold or dampness, but Ryan's instincts, honed by years of wilderness trips, screamed that something was wrong. He checked the perimeter of the cabin that night, flashlights slicing through the storm, but saw nothing. Snow muffled the forest sounds, and the wind erased footprints quickly. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It wasn't until the second night that the horror became undeniable. Around 3 a.m., a heavy pounding echoed against the front door. Ryan jolted awake. Olivia clutched him, heart racing, as the sound intensified. The figure at the door was unmistakable: a man dressed in a blood-stained Santa suit, eyes glinting with predatory intent, and a cruel smile beneath a frostbitten beard. The storm masked the sound of movement, but Ryan could feel it, an unnatural, deliberate presence circling the cabin. They attempted to escape in the car, only to discover all 4 tires shredded, glinting steel shards beneath the snow. The man's laughter was carried on the wind, a chilling confirmation that they had no immediate way out. Desperation drove them into the forest, trudging through knee-deep snow. The man pursued relentlessly, an almost supernatural endurance in the blizzard. Ryan felt the cold sear through his clothes, but he kept moving, dragging Olivia behind him. It was then that the attack came: a swing of the axe, precise and brutal, severing tendons in Ryan's Achilles. Pain exploded, sending him to the ground, unable to stand. Olivia's scream pierced the storm, echoing through the trees. Instinct took over. Olivia grabbed a handheld flare, the only tool they had left, and flung it directly at the attacker's face. The sudden light and heat forced him to recoil, one eye blinded, granting her a few precious seconds to pull Ryan forward. Together, they staggered through the forest for 3 kilometers, the snow obscuring their path but also shielding them from further immediate assault. By the time they reached a ranger station, hypothermia and exhaustion had nearly claimed them. Paramedics stabilized Ryan's leg, now irreparably damaged, while Olivia shivered uncontrollably, haunted by the memory of the man's smile and the surreal calm with which he had approached. The police later entered the cabin to investigate. What they found was nightmarish. Beneath the floorboards, 11 corpses, previous guests, all couples, dating back to 2018. Each body was suspended from the ceiling like grotesque ornaments, a macabre display arranged with meticulous care. Blood had long since dried, but the chilling arrangement remained, a testament to the man's obsession and planning. Evidence revealed that the killer had been living under the guise of the cabin's caretaker, having murdered the real owners a week before Ryan and Olivia's arrival. He had cut off heat, water, and electricity, manipulating the environment to his advantage. His Santa costume, soaked in dried blood, was a psychological weapon, preying on the holiday innocence of those who entered. Ryan survived, but his leg required amputation below the knee. Olivia was unscathed physically but bore a lifetime of psychological trauma. They never returned to snowbound forests. The sound of a storm, the sight of a cabin isolated in white, or even the simplest holiday decorations sent adrenaline spiking, reminders of that night when survival was measured in seconds and every choice was a matter of life or death. The Adirondacks were silent once more, snow draping the cabins and trees, hiding the horrors of the past. The killer's reign was ended by police intervention, but the memories remained indelible. For Ryan and Olivia, Christmas would forever be associated with fear, vulnerability, and the fragility of life in the hands of someone unthinkably cruel. Even years later, Ryan would flinch at the sound of a door knocked upon by strangers, and Olivia could not look at a red Santa suit without shivering. The story of the cabin spread quietly among locals, whispered as a